humans. Getting complimented, getting roses feels nice. No matter how many fucking roses you have, it's still nice.
It really does.
It's really just nice.
Yeah.
Fuck. The GaryVee audio experience. Vayner Nation, what is good? Super excited about this episode. Very family episode. VaynerSports Talk. I have three phenomenal young men with me. We're going to chop up about a lot of things. We're going to talk a lot of sports. We'll probably talk a little bit NFTs. We'll talk about debating. I mean, when Brando Parker and I are together, we're going to argue about something. That's just, it's in the AJ shaking his head in the background. Like, that's just a guarantee. Probably, but we're still going to have to probably play one-on-one and film it. I actually believe through your conviction after debating with you in Alabama a couple weeks ago that you would probably win. But I have a deep feeling that I could still pull out an upset. And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about this upcoming draft. I don't want AJ to get mad at me, but there's a young man sitting here that if the Jets leadership is listening to, I'm desperate for them to draft them. I'm not sure if that's legal or not illegal or what I'm doing here, but and Alan, super excited for you. So why don't you guys introduce yourself? We'll go around the circle. Brandon, why don't you say hello real quick?
Yep. My name is Brando Parker. I'm the COO of VaynerFootball, and just happy to be here with both A-Rob, you, and D-Bell. Looking forward to chopping it up.
D-Bell?
What's up? My name is David Bell. I'm currently in the process to get drafted at the end of this month, and just really excited to see where I'll end up at.
Love it. Alan?
Yo, what's good is Allen Robinson. Went to Penn State, drafted by Jacksonville, then been in Chicago, and now with the Rams, which I'm super excited about.
Love it. So a lot to talk about. Brandon, obviously you rep these two young men. So we'll start with you at the top of the triangle. What's on your mind? What are you excited about? Both of these guys are going through major, exciting transitions. Yeah. David, starting his journey, having a crazy year at Purdue, which I'm sure made you happy, and now going into league. And Alan going to the Super Bowl champs, like a formidable super team. Like, that's a big thing. So when you're on the other side repping individuals in different parts of their career, what's a consistent, what's a thing you focus on? How do you help? There's a lot of people who are listening right now, all of which probably spam AJ 24/7. Nobody gets hit up more than AJ because so many people want to be sports agents. And so I get hit up a ton of hey, I hit up AJ, can I work at VaynerSports? It's such a thing that so many of the listeners want to do in their life, because a lot of us grow up wanting to play like these two. Yeah. And somewhere along the way we realize we can't. And so for a lot of us, it's wait a minute, I want to rep them. You've been you grew up in this business. Your dad's a legend. You grew up in it. I've had the privilege of working with you. A little bit further deeper into sports representation life, how do you think about giving advice, helping? Alan just went through a big free agency contract. David's going to go to that part of even from a business standpoint, knowing how many people that are listening, people think you're going to be an NFL player, and then you start looking at taxes and expenses. And I'm sure David's probably already even gone through crossing some of these T's and I's in his mind. It's not like you're a trillionaire in your rookie contract. What are you telling these young men?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's different strokes for different folks, to be honest. These two guys have a lot of similar traits to one another, which is obviously what attracted us to David, because we were able to see kind of A-Rob's progression being in the league for 8 years. Even similar to how when it came to David, you were the first person to actually tell me about David.
Say that a little bit louder for all the people in the back.
G was the first person to put me on D-Bell. And then when I cut D-Bell's tape on, which was his freshman and sophomore year, right away, I actually had a very similar feeling as the first time I saw Alan play.
Let's talk about that real quick, because we got a little time here in the podcast. So I want to get people under the hood. When you say the tape, tell everybody the work that goes into it. How many minutes, hours? How do you get to the tape? I hit you up hey, there's this Purdue receiver I think has really got it. How do you go about actually doing the homework? What are you looking for? What were you talking for? What do you do?
Well, I'm not a scout, so typically I don't watch a whole lot of tape unless either someone tells me about a player, or if I just so happen to see a player that I like, then I'll dive deeper.
Meaning on a Saturday, you're walking by the TV, you watch 5 minutes, you're like, who's this D tackle?
Exactly.
You make a mental note, and then that following week,
that's what happened with him.
Is that true?
Literally walking through my kitchen, 3 weekends in a row, and I was just watching like some highlights, and I saw number 8 3 times in a row.
On Penn State.
3 weeks in a row, just going crazy. And so,
And very good looking. You didn't
I
hear
don't know
about that?
I don't know about all that.
Got it.
But it just, obviously we have contacts throughout the league that can get us the tape.
Of course.
And then, when you've seen it, because like you said before, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a world where I got to see a lot of great players.
Yes.
And they have similar traits, right? Great players just have similar traits across the board, not just in football, but just as human beings. And you kind of get to know some of these guys. Allen is a great example, and so is D. Bell. Very personable, relaxed, comfortable in their own skin kind of guys. And then once you kind of see it on the field, I've just learned over the years to just don't overcomplicate it.
Right.
If you see a guy that's a baller,
because you grew up in
baller.
it, for everybody's context, your dad, Eugene, is truly, truly one of the greatest icons of the profession. You feel like there's almost like a sixth sense, like a mix between intuition and a little bit of math.
I really do.
Yeah.
I really do. Yeah. And the traits, just like I said, they're on the field and they're off the field traits. But especially when it comes to receivers, at this point, you can just kind of tell the guys that have just a real high athletic intelligence, what I call it, like being able to just time when to go up and pluck the ball out the air, knowing what to do after the catch, right? You don't have to be necessarily the fastest or most explosive guy, but if mentally you can be 2 or 3 steps ahead of the other guys, it gives you a chance to really separate yourself as a player, which I think David does really well. But it's just funny that all the things that were similar about these two guys, and they've since built a really good relationship as well. D. Bill, we both went to Purdue, so we got a little bit of a rivalry with A-Rob when it comes to that. But
A-Rob's shaking his head.
when it
doesn't feel like there's really that much of a rivalry.
well, he'll get his chance to speak on that. But to answer your original question, when it comes to advice, you as an agent, you learn to, if it ain't broke, don't break it kind of thing. So I keep it pretty simple with these guys because they're both far and above. They're far away from their peers as it comes to understanding and maturity, right? Like neither one of these guys are the kind of guys that just want to be called up and told how good they are.
You don't have to babysit them.
No, not at all.
Not emotionally to what you were saying, and definitely not like keep them out of trouble.
Right. And so that allows you to.
Do you think it's a big mistake that agents make?
Yeah, but I don't know.
I think you're. I think you're. Yeah, of course they're in the business.
They don't
right?
understand. They just don't understand. Most of them.
But I think you're very thoughtful about this. Like I'm really thoughtful about it. And I think you're even like I'm really scared because I don't want to rep someone that's going to drag my reputation down. But I mean, you are very thoughtful when we talk about a lot of stuff. You're I would say cautious. Like I feel like you're really like, am I going to be about this kid? It's almost like you're pretty binary. Am I going to be about this kid? And if I'm not, and if it doesn't fit into this feeling I have, I'm just not interested even if they're going to be the number 1 pick in the draft.
I think
is that
you're
true?
Right. Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
I think I've just seen a lot. I've seen so many great players like end up being headaches for agents.
Yeah.
And end up it just not working. And I know myself. So because I know who I am and like how I work, and when I meet someone, it's just like meeting somebody. You're gonna know whether or not you're gonna get along with them well.
That self-awareness of yourself, knowing that you're not gonna be about that anyway, so it's not gonna work anyway, so you're gonna lose them anyway.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
Exactly right.
Dave, let's talk about self-awareness for a minute. Like, you're you're now as somebody who's really gonna get drafted in the NFL. Like, obviously, at Purdue, that's a real program. You've been reading things about yourself on the internet. You're a human being, right? Like, but this is probably the most stuff you've read about yourself, right? Everyone's got an opinion, got you in different mocks, things of that nature. How much do you think knowing yourself is a factor? Like, do you allow yourself to get caught up, like when people are saying good things or negative things? You're a human being. You're a young kid. Like, is that hard? Is that easy? Like when let's go into like real details. There's in every publication mock drafts, there's receivers that people think are going to get taken before you. Do you get competitive about that? How much does self-awareness or just knowing yourself factor into these? This is one of the biggest life moments that a professional athlete will have, which is the scrutiny of them going into a draft. How do you think about that?
I mean, I definitely, like you said, read it a lot, and I really don't take too much into consideration because a lot of those guys have never played the game. They're just watching it and just kind of basing it off what other people say. But I know my abilities and I know what I can do. So when I read stuff that, you know, that doesn't add up to my play style, I'm like, well, he's wrong. So he's definitely not credible. He really doesn't know what he's talking about. But so that's why I just, you know, stay to myself. And if I have questions, you know, I ask my peers or like Alan or Brandon and stuff like that. But like I said, I know I'm very comfortable with what I did on the field, and I know what I can do in the NFL at the next level.
Interesting. Do you feel like, are you a player that feeds off the crowd in any shape or form, or is it just all quiet? Cheering and booing, it's all the same. It's not really affecting you one way or the other.
Yeah, it doesn't really affect me one way or another. You know, that's kind of how I grew up. I was always taught to just, you know, block out the noise, whether it's the praise or the boos and stuff like that. So that's just how I live my life. You know, I take it one day at a time and just try to stay even keeled.
Alan, how about for you? Like, does cheering or booing motivate you in either direction, or are you also kind of like you can't hear it?
Honestly, I actually kind of enjoy the boos. You know, that's always like a fun thing. You know, even from college, like when you first
You like being on the road?
Yeah, from when you first come out the tunnel.
They're just
You know,
booing you heavy.
yeah, because it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, to me, it's like if you ever been in the stadium and you hear like an incompletion at home on third down versus on the road. You know, on the road, you know, it's a little bit different. You know, I feel like even everybody's aura, it shakes back a little quicker because, again, it's like, you know, like, I mean, if you, like, again, have a 3-and-out, the away team is cheering if you away.
Yeah,
you know, at home, it's kind of like it's like, you know what I'm saying, the air is being taken out of the stadium. But on the road, you don't get that. You know, on the road, it's a little bit different, you know.
Meaning, disappointment from the home crowd is more of a negative kind of energy than the cheering, because that's expected, right?
Yeah.
Of course the opposing fans are pumped you're 3-and-out. But at home, it's like a woe is me energy.
Yep.
Us Jet fans have that big.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's like,
seriously, like
and
when
it's
we
one
go
of those
3-and-out, our stadium, we've got nothing. We're so pissed and so on tilt for the last 40 years.
And then at home, sometimes, shit, you go a couple 3-and-outs, now you getting booed.
Oh, we boo heavy on the first
You know what
drive.
I'm saying? So it's like
we love a
depending-
good booing on the first
Depending on
drive.
where you at, you know, just
Especially if the media hyped you the week before, like a big game, or this is going to be fucked up, or this and that. First drive.
and that's the thing. You can ask, I don't know how many players, ask somebody how many times they've been booed away. You know if you're getting booed away, you either scoring touchdowns or coming out the tunnel. One or two.
Yeah, fact.
Right.
One or two.
Who was the toughest crowd you played in college? Like the loudest, craziest? You remember anything?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but it was definitely Penn State.
Really?
Yeah, so it was my freshman year. It was a homecoming, and I was
Right, you're a kid out of high school. It's like
Yeah.
your fifth game, fourth game in college, right?
yeah, like fourth game of the season. I just came off being freshman of the week, so I had high expectations going into that game, and it didn't end how I wanted it. That defense, it had like 5 or 6 NFL players. It had Michael Parsons on there, so you know he was in the backfield wreaking havoc. And every time they get a sack, you hear like a roar.
Like real loud.
Yeah, real loud, like on the sound system. So like I'm in the middle running my route, and you just hear that roar. Like you can't even get the full depth of your route. So and then the fans are crazy. So I definitely have to say that was the most loudest.
Was it a whiteout or a blackout that they had there?
They just do
I think it was
whiteout, right?
Yeah.
It was
Or
white.
y'all do like
yeah.
a blue out or something? Y'all do something else?
Oh, we do the stripe every blue moon.
I mean, you guys just always do. You guys do a lot of color coordinating.
Nah, just white. Sometimes stripe.
Oh, do you do multiple whiteouts
We
per
keep
year?
it pretty simple.
I think
Sometimes depending on the game.
Yeah.
If it's like game day or if it's like a rival game, we'll do a couple whiteouts.
AJ, that is one thing I miss about Rex Ryan. He brought a little bit of the college atmosphere to us. He was like, it's a whiteout. He would make videos. Remember that phone call that was sent to all Jet fans? College atmosphere is absolutely crazy. All right, Alan, talk to us. You're a Ram now.
I'm excited. Very excited.
I mean, let's just call it what it is. I don't want Bear fans or Jag fans to get upset with me, but like, you've had most of your career on teams that weren't coming into the season predicted to go to the Super Bowl. Is that like a new feeling altogether?
A little bit. I would say for me, I try to keep that kind of a little bit not out of sight because it's there and it's inevitable, and I'm actually happy to be a part of that. You know,
you're excited about having expectations.
Yeah. And I tell everybody, you know, if you don't want expectations, that means you're not doing something right.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, having expectation comes with good teams, comes with good players, comes with people doing good things. It's inevitable. You know, if you're as a person trying to duck expectation, then you're in the wrong business of whatever you're doing, because it's going to be there. So having that, you know, to me, it just makes you lock in a little bit different, you know, each and every day. You know, you you know what you're there for. You know what time it is, and just again being able to join that atmosphere and that team. It's exciting. It's I look at teams and players as like a partnership, and that's kind of how you feel with good teams. It's like we're in this together. It's not about this or not about that. You're in this together, and you in this to achieve one ultimate goal.
I have a fun idea. I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm going to test it here right now. I want to give out some roses. I'm going to ask you guys some questions. I think that we as a society have gotten really good at like tearing people down societally. Like we're just on it. Everyone's just trying to fucking cancel and destroy everyone.
Yeah,
so I'm like, right? So I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to start trying to do more like giving out roses while people are alive and all this stuff. So let's go through. I got a series of questions. I got a couple already popping in mind for all three of you. Let's start with you, Brandon.
Okay.
Roses. Which player you thought was going to be fine, not bad, fine, solid, could be decent, but growing up in this business, if I asked you which 2 or 3 players, one player, not that you were wrong about, but you were like, that's going to be a solid player, but is like on the way to being a Hall of Famer or is a beast. Like, let's give some roses out.
Right,
who in the last 5 to 7 to 8 years, you're in the game, you're analyzing before they get into league, who are you like, oh, that's going to be a good ball player who right now is fucking putting in work?
Miles Garrett is the first one that comes
All right, let's
to
talk.
mind.
That's good. Let's talk about that because he was going to be the number 1 pick. People were super gassed on him. To your point, I'm now going in my brain. He's been better than I thought too, even though I thought he was because he's so good.
Yeah. He's a freak. I just didn't think he was worthy of a number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
And usually I don't get into the geek like teams do about why, like little things as to why a player isn't good.
Yeah.
But
You got hot
sometimes,
on that year.
and if I'm not repping the guy, you know what I mean? It makes it a lot easier to kind of do it. So I was getting into some debates with my brothers, and we're talking, and I'm focused on how weird he runs and stuff. And
None of that mattered.
Just right away, he came into the league.
I know, it was a beast.
And I'm like, okay, I was wrong.
You got off
right away.
I did that with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know about that. For his second game, I'm like, let me get off this train right now. I was super wrong. I don't want to talk about that anymore.
He does everything though. He's like even though he does kind of get his props.
Does everything.
Like he should. I mean, he
should get more.
He should be up there in the discussions with Aaron Donald, in my opinion, as far as a game record. He's that. He's that
great.
special
Aaron's
level
so
player.
crazy, but like I'm with you.
Yeah.
And he's a complete player.
He is. Man. He
really
can do everything.
He's a good ball player.
Let me think. Other guys that just deserve some roses.
Give another thought. I'm going to bounce around.
Yeah.
What coach do you think you want to give roses to that has the biggest impact for you to be in this position right now as a player that is going into the league? If I asked you that question.
Yeah, so it had to be my little league coach, Carl Purnell. Purnell, yeah. So he's kind of stepped into that father figure for me. My grandfather was there first grade, so probably 6. Wow. Yeah, so I used to spend a night over his house on Friday night, and he'll take me to the games in the morning, or I'll stay home. But just being around him to see how he took care of his son, I'm like, okay, this is how I know I had my grandfather too, but seeing somebody else outside the family do that and seeing how he took care of his family, took care of his son, like, okay, that's somebody I want to be like when I get older. So that's definitely somebody I have to get their roses to.
I love that. Alan, let's give roses in a way that's a little bit harder, but it will be fun. Who do you think, because I think listen, this was long, I'll say it again, long before we had the luxury of teaming up with Brandon and repping you. I've just always been a big fan of your game. I'm really genuinely curious about what your season's going to look like this year, given the circumstances, because I'm also a big Stafford guy. Giving roses, which defender do you really think, you've been in the league, that you're like, man, he's a pain in the ass. Like he's really a good ball player.
Three come to mind for me. Actually 4.
Go ahead.
Jason Verrett is a dude.
Verrett.
Playing against him, man, was we had some battles.
Yeah.
We had some battles in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Stephon Gilmore. He's
Why
another
Gilmore?
one.
Size?
Man, he has everything. He has the size, he has the strength, he has the speed. He plays very, very technical. Like each and every snap, he's gonna play his technique. Jalen Ramsey, he's a person who's super athletically gifted, and he kind of plays a little bit differently than other corners, but he's kind of evolved and created his own kind of technique in which
you
in
were
which he
gone already
plays.
from Jacksonville when they drafted
No,
him,
we
right?
played
1 year together?
2 years
Or two?
together.
Oh, beautiful. So
Played
this is reuniting.
Yeah, played
Feels
2
good.
years together, and then the last was a person I played against. He's retired now, but it's Revis.
Darrell.
Yeah, he's a dude who, man, he matched me in 2015 every snap. He gave me a different look each and every snap, and it was the first time in my career that I actually felt like I was like,
Confused?
yeah, like thinking at the line of scrimmage. You know, I mean, I still had a pretty good game, but it was one of those times where I kind of, after that game, kind of readjusted my approach to like the line of scrimmage and the pre-snap and how I kind of wanted to go about my pre-snap plan. That's even kind of talking to him after the game. You know, he kind of just kind of, you know, gave me some tidbits as to how I should kind of approach the line of scrimmage. Yeah. So
That's interesting. You know, obviously, he's one of the best players I got to watch every snap of. I really think about him a lot because the NFL has gotten so much harder for the defender. I still don't think there's been a corner since him, and there was guys before him, but since him, I don't think there's been another Darrell Revis in the league, and Jalen's amazing, and there's been other guys, but like, he was, those 2 years, 2009, 10, were so crazy, like so crazy. People, AJ, that was a 2-year span where if somebody caught a pass, we were upset and surprised. A pass. And I'm talking about the best receivers in the league would come to New York, Megatron, and have 2 and 17, 1 and 9. It was out of Ocho Cinco in his prime, like back-to-back games, like blanked. You know how weird that is?
yeah.
It was super weird. He got crazy.
I got my other one.
Go ahead.
Mike Evans.
That's a
He would be
great
one.
one. I'm with you on that too.
I agree with
Really?
that too.
I mean,
I agree with that
I
too.
just think that
Do you just hate Texas A&M?
That's what it
my
seems
God.
like. Yeah, that's what it seems
Well,
like
here's
for
the
real.
thing, though. I didn't hate Mike at all coming. I didn't hate either of these players.
Yeah.
I actually
You
kind
just
of like
didn't-
Mike. I didn't
You
think.
didn't think it was gonna be crazy.
I mean, you know,
Mike's
Mike
a
Evans never
beast.
had a season that he didn't catch for 1,000
No, I know
yards.
he's a beast.
So when you talk about Flowers, it's just like, man, it's hard to catch for 1,000 yards in
Yeah.
the league.
I
To
agree.
do it every year in your
I
career,
agree.
that's and we don't even really talk about him amongst like the greats.
I agree.
I think he deserves his. And then the other guy who I did like
I think
too,
he's underrated.
but I think he should be talked about a lot more is AJ Green as well. I chose two receivers, but you know AJ, he's a guy who was it his first 7 years in the league. He went to first.
Snapping.
He was first
Oh,
ballot
he's a-
Pro Bowl
he's
first
a-
7 years.
I agree. That's a great. You know
Julio
what?
kind of outshined him a little bit for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
yeah, that's-
I've always liked AJ a little more, to be honest.
You know, it's really funny you bring that up. I think there's a lot of players through the years who are like sensational, and just because of circumstances, you know, like listen, I think Allen, to be honest, like I'm
Yeah, no
excited that he's on it. Like this is like Allen. I think his career is going down the path of where I'm about to go, which is there are players who are grossly all-time underrated because of pure circumstance.
No doubt.
Well, and I think in a person like Mike Evans' situation, I think that the football world and just in general, people get super infatuated with like spikes and peaks. You know what I'm saying? So Mike kind of being consistent
Consistent.
Yeah,
around
consistent.
1,100, 1,200,
That's right.
1,300, 1,200. He may not have ever had a 1,700, 1,800 yard season, but he's been so good
I
and
know.
so consistent to whereas like it gets overlooked.
Yeah, I think-
You know,
I
because
think
people
that's
kind of
right.
want that
No, that-
spike,
no, I
you
think
know,
that's a
of
real-
the
I think that's
of
a
the
real-
18 touchdowns or 1,800 yards.
That's
You
a
know what I'm
really
saying?
interesting
Exactly.
Or
observation.
140 catches. You know, it's like
Let's talk about the draft a little bit. So D-Bell's going through this big moment. We're only a couple weeks away. Alan, what about your experience? Let's get some fun stories that maybe people don't know.
yeah. I actually I left my draft party for a little bit. I was
frustrated?
I was frustrated.
Because you thought you were going to go first round.
I didn't. I thought it was a chance I could go first round. I think
Okay.
I wasn't upset with that. I think it was for me. It was upset once it got down to the second round. I think I ended up being the 11th receiver taken. You know, and seeing a lot of people come off the board in front of me, you know, was just frustrating.
That 9th
you
and
know.
10th guy pissed you off.
It
Real talk.
before that, you know, I mean, shit. But you know, so it was
If
one
you were
of those.
mad at the 4th and 5th guy, you were on fucking tilt when the
Yeah.
8th and 9th and 10th guy
Yeah,
went.
for sure. And I mean, that's the thing. I probably left my draft party around like pick 40, 45. So I probably was like outside kicking it for like 15, 16 picks, you know, just like chilling. And I remember one of my high school coaches had texted me like, "You good?" I mean, I was straight. I didn't want to. I was frustrated at that point. I didn't want to really, you know, be around anybody. So
remind me what, because again, and I love you, David, for saying I read it. Like people are humans. Remind me, because I don't remember. Did people have you projected in the first round, or you felt you were projected second round?
I felt like I was projected second.
Okay.
It's funny because how you get your draft, you can like submit these games in like a form or something, and like the NFL kind of gets back to you where you were projected to be drafted. And I did that, but I didn't look at that until after the draft.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so and they had me projected at second round.
And
But
what were you talking to him about during that whole moment?
You talking about when he was at the draft? I wasn't talking to him at all at
Got
that
it.
time. We had a lot of players in that draft. I was at home with my dad watching it. Which I have another story about the draft later, but it's funny because I remember his experience. I was with Alshon Jeffrey for his draft experience. I was actually up close and personal with him. Very similar. And I think he could be in store for something similar as well. Guys that they know, I know, and anybody who really knows them knows that they're going Pro Bowl level kind of players. It's just something about watching guys get drafted.
By the way,
before
it's the weirdest position for me in the NFL currently.
Yeah.
I was yelling at my TV screen as a fan long before I knew as much as I know today. And I knew a lot because I watched so much, but now I'm at a different place because I'm under the hood. Yelling for the Jets to take Keenan Allen. Yelling in the first round. And I think he went third round. And these guys all fit this. The receiver thing is weird. The league still overvalues, in my opinion, and I'm putting this on wax because I want to be historically correct, I think the league slightly continues to overemphasize speed at the combine for receivers when the film is telling you a completely other story. And it just feels like there's an obnoxious amount of second and third round receivers who ball the fuck out that have the same narrative.
I'll tell you significantly, not slightly, it's significant. Like, that's the conversation that I've had most with teams over the last 3 months. And I'm not trying to sell them because I know you can't sell them anyway.
No, that's
it's
right.
more so like you said, have it on wax. Like, when are y'all going to wake up and just look at the top receivers in the game and go, are those tracks 40 speed kind of guys, or are those, guys that you just cut on the tape and they separate themselves,
The Jets made that mistake.
Everybody
in
continuously
1981.
makes it, but one second. The one thing that is going to maybe change that, I was talking to a former GM a couple weeks ago, is the teams that are switching to GPS instead of, and so they can actually see how fast the guys get up to in a game, like Cooper Kupp or him, for example, as opposed to looking at a track race and seeing how a guy runs in a 40.
Speed.
So I
The
think
data's starting to catch up.
yes, like the next
You were gonna
15
say
years,
something
we
else?
could see a change there.
I think it's two things. One, I think the overemphasis that, well, not the over, but the under emphasis is that when you take guys that are more skillful guys, when you get in the league, especially at the receiver position, it comes to being able to adapt your game. The receiver position, I think, is very similar to kind of like a basketball player. It's like if you have all these different things on your tool belt as a player, you can continue to adapt your game over time. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not just a speed guy. You can do a little bit of everything. You can continue to evolve your game, change your game. Maybe it's route running, whatever it may be. You have all these skills to be able to win, firstly. And secondly, I think the other thing, the speed factor is a huge factor for guys who don't have that dude under center. To me, in my opinion. If you go look at the players who play with Aaron Rodgers or Josh Allen or any of the top quarterbacks in the league and the guys that they've had, like even like you said, like Keenan Allen and Phillip Rivers, you know what I'm saying? Even with Justin Herbert, he's had a ton of success, but nobody's
Talk
afraid
about a
to.
guy who had great circumstance. Imagine Keenan Allen's career, Phillip Rivers and Herbert.
But again, and I think he's more so. I don't think he's the beneficiary. I think I don't want to say the quarterbacks are the beneficiary.
It's the combo.
But it's the combo. And when I say it's the combo, it's like if you have a guy like Phillip Rivers, Keenan Allen being Keenan Allen, he's gonna have success. You don't have to worry about can Phillip Rivers get Keenan Allen the ball in these different spots. As long as Keenan is Keenan, he's gonna kill. As long as Devontae Adams is Devontae Adams, he's gonna kill. We have the person that can get him the ball at any
Devontae
position on the
Adams'
field.
whole conversation of run fucking routes really caught my attention. Forget about all these drills on Instagram. You big believer in that? Is that
for
the real talk?
Yeah, for sure.
Is that the real talk?
Obviously,
route running.
Obviously, you got to have some drills and stuff to kind of emphasize, other physical traits as far as that you're training. But definitely, the biggest thing is being able to run a route. Like if you're doing stop routes at 3 yards and 5. Everybody can stop at 3 to 5 yards.
Of course.
But can you stop at 18? You know, how fast can you get out of your speed cut at 20 yards on a 20-yard dagger?
Sure.
You know, but you got to be able to build that speed up for 20 and then cut. You can't just run 5 yards and then speed cut. Everybody could do that. You know,
Yeah, that makes
And it's
sense.
basketball. Basketball, what you said there, that's huge. Like, you see guys that were like David hooped. He was a really good basketball player. So was Allen.
Well, Allen thinks he
that
could have been in the
position-
league. Allen really thinks he can hoop.
I could hoop a little bit.
yeah,
I
I
think
lie.
I could.
David said,
Yeah,
"Don't
Dave-
sleep on me."
Yeah.
David was like
I would have
that.
took it
I
seriously
believe
for
it.
sure.
I believe it.
And it's just similar
So
traits at
crazy.
that position, that receiver position. Really, you know, you're kind of to get open. You're doing the same things. Kind of like James Harden. He probably would have been a good wide receiver, but not the fastest wide receiver. But
I get
those
it.
similar
I get
traits.
Allen, why don't you drop anything?
I think
Seriously,
my
though, man,
main
you
focus,
really catch everything for
I think,
real.
and that's the number one job. You know, again, is
Did you get better at it? How'd you get better at it? Like, obviously, some people have good hand-eye coordination. Like, even me and AJ are good at catching because we have good hand-eye. But like, how do you get like from elite to super elite? Like, when I say that to you, I'm saying that as a compliment on purpose. Like, you really fucking don't drop shit.
I've always been pretty good at catching the ball. It's fun. I didn't start playing receiver to my junior year of high school. So
Because you were going to the NBA.
well, I was smaller, so I was like 5'8", you know, early on. So I played running back, but I just always kind of, I guess, naturally been able to catch the ball. I mean, I work at catching the ball too, for sure. But I think my main focus is always, you know, when the ball is in the air, is to catch it. You know, I think that I'm not really truly, you know, now I'm kind of, you know, again, adapting, you know, to just be able to get catch and run opportunities. So being able to, you know, kind of put my body in the position to run, you know, when I do catch it and in better positions, you know. But when the ball is in the air, you know, the number one job is to catch it.
D-Bell, are you thinking about, like, you're in a funny spot now. Most people, when they get out of school, they're kind of in control.
Yeah.
Like, Dustin decided he's willing to, they're willing to come to New York. Like, you don't get to decide. Like, you're about to live somewhere. Out of like a heartbeat, you're going to get a phone call. You know, 5 minutes later, we're going to get a phone call and be pumped for you. And you might be thinking like, man, I'm about to live in this city. Like, are you thinking about that a lot or not really?
Yeah, most definitely. 'Cause my whole life I've been in Indiana. Went to high school in Indianapolis and then Purdue, West Lafayette, is about an hour and 15 minutes away. So it's definitely going to be.
So like, are you praying that the Colts take you?
I'm praying just to get drafted.
Yeah,
you know?
good
I don't really.
answer. Good answer.
I'm not really
But it's
too
crazy,
big on one
right?
team though. Yeah, for sure. I was just talking to my mom about it maybe a few days ago. Like, it's gonna be her first time if the Colts don't get drafted that you outside the city. So, you know, hopefully I can build the same fan base that I built in Indianapolis and in Indiana to wherever I go.
Allen, when you went back to Roses, let's go to another place. What player, when you entered the league, most big brothered you and helped you the most? Anybody stand out? And maybe even if they didn't really put their arm around you and say, hey, youngster, I'm going to be there for you. Maybe somebody, if you didn't have that circumstance, because sometimes that doesn't happen. Yeah. Was there anybody on Jacksonville that you, no different than what Didi Bell said about Coach, was there somebody in the locker room and you're like, I like the way that guy moves. I'm going to be that kind of pro when I get older?
Yeah, so off the top of my head, a few guys. Actually, we had a super young team when I got to Jacksonville.
Right, I remember now.
So it was me, Marquise Lee, Alan Hearn, Storm Johnson,
You had a
Brandon
young
Linder.
group. You
We
had a
all
young
came in on
group.
offense together.
Yeah, you guys
you
had
know,
a young
our first
receiver.
win that year, we started 8 rookies. You know, but we did have some vets like Cecil Shorts, Mercedes Lewis, Jock McClendon, who's actually the player engagement guy in Los Angeles right now as well.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, he's a dude who for sure took me under his wing. But as I kind of advanced a little bit, it was a lot of vets and retired guys. You know, like I'm pretty cool with Calvin Johnson, Steve Smith, Randy Moss. You know, I got
Some of the legend dudes.
Yeah, so
the guys you looked up to.
yeah, for sure. You know,
Did you seek them out? Did some of them seek you out? Was it serendipitous, or were you at like a event and you saw them and you're like, let me start to build this relationship? How did that go down?
a little bit of both, actually. I forget how I actually end up getting super cool with Moss, but I ended up training in Charlotte with him for 4 to 6 weeks.
That must have been cool.
It was super dope, you know, being able to, and even
Talk
now,
about a
you know,
guy who came into the league and did work. 8 seconds in, everyone was like, we fucked up.
Well,
8 seconds in.
This is the crazy thing
I saw
about
him
it.
play at
Remember?
Marshall
He
live.
scored
Yeah.
a touchdown in every single one of his college games.
You talking about Moss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I actually
'cause of
saw
Chad
him play at
Pennington.
Marshall one time.
Jets legend Chad Pennington, don't sleep.
Hey, Pennington was nice, but come on.
Yeah.
So
God, that must have been really fun for you.
Yeah, it
Who was
was
your
dope.
favorite receiver as a kid?
Moss.
So that was it, huh?
Yeah.
Right
It was
there.
dope. And again,
D-Bell, who was your favorite receiver, like in the last 7-8 years? Like, let's say, because you transitioned to a big program like Purdue, it kind of changed a little bit. But what about in high school? If I said to you, in your 4 years of high school, who was your favorite NFL receiver? Did you have one?
Yeah, I liked Andre Johnson. Yeah, he was a guy I liked a lot.
Hey, talk about flowers. That dude deserves it.
Yeah, I liked Andre
Yeah,
Johnson
man, he
a
was a
lot.
beast.
Yeah, he was.
He was
super underrated.
That's it. That's another guy. That's another Darrell Rivas roses, bro. Other than the fact that Stevie was on the other side, gave him a little bit of work, but interesting. Moss, Andre was a beast.
Yeah, he was.
I liked
He was
him a
real
lot.
nice.
Let's talk about basketball. Playoffs are about to come. You're always talking basketball. Now that I knew that you could be an NBA player too.
Yeah, for sure.
And Brandon, you sneakily think you're phenomenal in basketball.
You gotta
Yeah,
chill.
I knew I wasn't going to NBA though.
What do we think? Like, what's our hot take?
East.
D-Bell, before we started this, you're like, I'm not sure Phoenix can do it.
I don't think.
I was kind of saying, I think maybe they're the fact that they got so far last year, like sometimes that second year, you know, I'm also hot on the Nets. You were talking about that off camera before we started. If I said right now, NBA Finals champion, let's go around it's super hard, but it's
is.
fun.
It is.
Let's
This
play.
year's real hard.
Let's play.
I'll go
Let's
last.
play.
I'll go last.
Second to last.
All right, D-Bell.
Gary, you got
I'll go first. I'll go first. I actually am pretty locked into this and been locked in. I do a show with DraftKings called Props and Drops, and 2 months ago I locked this in, so I'm going to run it all the way through. I just mentioned them. I think it's going to be Nets Phoenix. I'm sticking with it. I've been on it for months, and I think it's going to play out. The Nets are going to have a tougher road, I think, than Phoenix. I think Phoenix is going to get themselves back there. And if I had to pick a winner, I think if the Nets get there, then they'll win it. So I'm going to go with the Nets. D-Bell?
Go ahead.
I gotta go Golden State.
Golden
Coming
State.
out the West.
Yep. And the East?
East.
East is tough.
It is.
East is
It's
tough.
tough.
East is tough.
You can really be okay with a lot of decisions.
I personally say the Celtics.
I get it.
Yeah, I got, and then
And in that finals,
I got the Celtics taking it.
you got the Celtics
Yeah, I
getting
got
it.
the
You feel they're that hot right now.
Yeah, I got it.
I get it.
got
I
the
get it.
Celtics.
I didn't
B.
think
Parker?
you were going that route, fam.
Yeah, I got the Celtics.
Well, my bias I have to pick the Warriors coming out the West. I can't not pick them.
Why?
Just because I think I just really like the Warriors. I think Steph.
I gotta know what that joke is off
I
camera.
just think
after.
I just think Steph's not only the most underrated player, but maybe a top 3 player of all time. But that's another discussion. So I'm gonna go Warriors.
And he says top 3 now. I've actually heard top 3 and not 2 or 3 . But that's why
There's
he
a
paused.
part of you.
I live with
Wait a
that.
minute.
That's why
There's
I'm
a
not
part.
afraid of that.
That
I
was
see where you're going.
that was
Now
that joke.
No,
That was that joke.
No.
Hey, thank you for
got
teeing
it.
that up.
No.
'cause
So
I'm with that.
let's tee it up. There's a part of you in your body that debates with yourself, and you know it's not something that's accepted by society.
Yeah.
That you might think in your mind,
That
and
Steph's the best player of all time.
yeah, that's profound.
Yeah.
That's a.
I mean,
you know what's crazy?
He definitely changed the game.
Things can get very weird if, like, this was my whole thesis, and by the way, continues to be with LeBron. Like, if you told me LeBron gets 2 rings in the next 3 seasons, that registers in my head as like, oh, it got put together in LA, or Bronny came in and he went somewhere else and it got put together. Like, Steph can still win
Yeah.
3-4 titles.
And I mean,
Could.
when you talk about accomplishments and titles and that sort of stuff, that's when I kind of back away from those arguments.
Why?
Just because there's so many, like, you give me the side, I can argue it, right? Like, I'm just saying flat out, pound for pound. Like, if I'm a coach and I'm coaching against a team, and you said, who is one player that I wouldn't want on the other team in terms of having to account for him all over
Yeah, I
the
get
court,
it.
it'd be Steph for me. So that's why I think Steph. But
Anyway.
I would say Warriors, and then it's a coin flip between Boston or Milwaukee and New Jersey for me,
Okay.
or Brooklyn.
Yep.
But I'm gonna rock out with the Nets and Warriors, man.
And who's going to win it?
Warriors.
Okay. Alan?
Yes, coming out the East, because I'm a big, especially once you get to playoff time, I'm big on who has the best player. 'Cause
Yeah,
I think that's what makes series so tough. You
I
know, so I
agree.
think in the East, I gotta go with Milwaukee or the Nets,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the West, I have to go Phoenix. Man, Phoenix or Golden State. Only thing that kind of makes me with Golden State is Steph being a little dinged up going into the playoffs. You know, not kind of having, I don't want to say not having that rhythm, but I do think it's tough when you're playing against a team like Phoenix who has who has been very cohesive and has had a lot
AJ,
of their
can you
guys
look up
majority of
Phoenix's
the year.
record? Because I think I.
They lost 16 games, I think.
That's nothing.
70.
Yeah.
18.
That's
18.
insane.
Yeah.
That is good.
64 wins. Like, I think people are sleeping on them a little bit. Like,
I think it's going to be a rematch from last year.
I just don't see
You
it.
do?
Yeah.
I know you really.
I just don't see
I can't wait to text you if they get
And,
there.
and the reason why I
They
say
do have
that,
a
man, is
complete
because
team.
Phoenix has a complete team. They're pretty deep. Everybody knows their roles.
They're very
They have a
deep.
very
They
cohesive
are a
group.
team. They're a
and
team.
once you get to the playoffs,
They're a team.
having
You know what's
that-
funny? They remind me of young Golden State.
Yeah.
Before they super teamed out with Durant.
Yeah.
Like, it was so teamy. Like Clay, Steph, and Draymond, and everybody surrounding them, and Andre, like as a vet, like in that Chris Paul's, I think a little bit more, but like they're just teamy to me.
and
And
that's-
Milwaukee has that.
That's why I
With the
say
best.
this.
I'm with
That's why I
you.
say the
I'm with you.
Celtics.
Exactly
And the
why I say
Celtics
They do
play.
have
The
that too.
Celtics play defense.
You know what it is about the
They
Celtics?
play defense.
You know what?
Giannis is a little more of
Yeah.
an alpha than Tatum. Just a
True.
little bit.
Just
And
a
I
little
love
bit more.
Tatum too.
That's my problem with the Celtics. Those the two-headed monster, and that's obviously more Tatum than Brown, but like I don't trust it.
I agree.
It gets
I feel you.
cold out of nowhere for no reason or logic. I think that like the person I most fear on that team from like real life like is
Marcus Smart?
100%.
Yeah, I feel it.
That player, Marcus Smart, would be my favorite player of all time if he was on the Knicks. That's how much I love the 83 intangibles I sense. I hate going to Knicks Celtic games because Marcus Smart does 12 things in a game that I admire the most.
Yeah.
But he's a Celtic, so I hate him.
What are some of those things?
Like pulling on someone's shorts, poking someone in the ribs, playing deep, like all these weird ass things that like not Patrick Beverly, like 15% a little bit more not crazy.
Yeah, I was about to
But, like,
ask you. Did you like
I
Pat
love Patrick.
Bev?
Listen, I'm someone who has no talent that has to rely on all those things to compete, and because of that, I know how much it matters. People are not mentally strong.
And that's
People are not mentally strong out there. You've got 88% of players out there not as mentally strong as people think, and little shit can fuck them up. Like a little fucking. Obviously that's like hyperbole, but like I believe in those little fucking diving, like doing something with the crowd, like humans. Back to Brandon's the way we started this podcast.
It does
Brandon was
mean
just
your
talking
head.
about intuition. Energy's real. Humans play that way, like little fucking things. Like the player on your. I'll give you I'll give you a great Marcus Smart thing. I've watched, the league, the NBA is so about streaks, right? It's so streaky. 12-0 run, like down 20, you win by 25. Like it's very streaky with the three ball and the way the league is now. I've seen Marcus Smart multiple times just against the Knicks in the last 2 seasons do the small little thing that starts the 12-0 run. You can just see the rest of his team getting more hyped.
Yeah.
and
It's real.
you know who else has that?
Who?
Milwaukee with Drew Holiday.
I love Drew Holiday's game.
And
he's skilled as fuck.
To me,
And
I was
he's
just
skilled
gonna
as
say
fuck.
that's
Hey, get
I
to
love
his
Drew.
to me,
Yeah, I
by
love
the
Drew's
way.
game.
To me,
I
He
love
deserves
him.
his.
that's why I feel like in the playoffs, because you have Middleton who can kind of be a possible, with all due respect, roller coaster of some games. When I say roller coaster, I
shits he
mean
play like
I mean
Jordan.
from
Sometimes
35
he play
to 17.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Kwame
Like it's
Bryant.
kind of that range.
Yeah.
But with having Giannis and Drew Holiday and knowing what
Can
you're
we
gonna
get
get.
Brandon some water? This guy's been coughing the whole fucking podcast. Brandon fucking up our acoustics. Go
And
ahead.
and having Giannis and Drew in a 7-game series,
Yeah, man.
is
I'm
tough.
with you. Let's talk about other interests. What about fighting? Len, here's what I mean by that. MMA, boxing, or actual wrestling, like WWE stuff, like any of those things ever hit your radar? Like, I love all those things. Did you like that growing up?
I'll let them start.
I
ahead.
grew up watching like WWE.
Go ahead. So who's your favorite wrestler of all time?
Probably Rey Mysterio.
Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
You love the fucking flying around shit.
Yeah, all that. We used to jump off my auntie couch, do the tricks and stuff. So
And did you fuck with the mask?
yeah, most definitely. So we definitely grew up watching that in the house. We couldn't watch it in my house, but we go around the corner of my auntie
Yeah.
house.
I love
We
that.
can go watch that for sure.
B.
You a
Parker?
wrestling guy at all?
I was growing up. Mine was
who's your
either The Rock or John Cena.
Yeah, you're that era.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The Rock.
I was
and John
rocking
Cena.
Sting. Sting from WCW.
Of course, Sting
He
was
was
a
him.
beast.
He was him.
I
for a
did
minute.
bang with the Undertaker too. I'm not gonna lie.
The whole
Yeah.
Wolfpack was really
AJ, who's your favorite wrestler of all time? You can't. AJ,
Cold.
AJ, how old? AJ, what are you? What I'm 40. You're 30, 35. 35 is a weird one.
It's the worst era.
Yeah, because AJ's like childhood was in between Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, my era, and The Rock, Stone Cold. He still got that because he was young, but the true childhood where it's like this, he had like Tatanka and like fucking like Duke the Dumpster Drozy and all sorts of like weird. That was the Bret Hart, Yokozuna were the top. But it was like that wasn't the two big eras. But who is your favorite wrestler? Actually, I actually don't think I know. Actually, push comes to shove.
Yes. For fun. Try.
The British Bulldog. The British
which
Bulldog.
which league?
Just because I cried when he turned heel, he wasn't my favorite.
Was it
Yeah, by the way, did you
WCW?
just hear that?
No.
The reason I guessed it was the British Bulldog is the British Bulldog was a good guy. He turned bad, and AJ cried because he was
I
into
was
it.
like,
That used
Yeah,
to
he
be
was
real though.
All right, hold on. So
Was it
fuck,
WCW or
man, I thought
WWE?
that's who I thought it was.
it was a WWE wrestler. I love that, like the Monday Night Wars,
Mhm.
like NWO.
Yeah, that
Me
was the
too. Yeah,
best.
yeah. That was our era.
Who,
yeah.
bro?
What's your guess?
Nah, it'd be more so my time. I was gonna say, I was gonna guess Shawn Michaels.
Say somebody
Right
like
now.
Wow!
That's it.
Was it?
Wow, good
Okay,
shit, Alex.
okay.
Crazy.
Very upset. Very upset right now. That
Because the reason why I say that,
Hey,
because
Rob, he's
I
our
mean,
third
I was-
brother. You're our third brother now.
I banged with what was it, Degeneration X or
Yeah,
something
of
like that.
course.
Triple H.
Triple
DX
H.
was the
Yeah,
truth.
yeah, yeah.
DX
Everybody
was the
kind of,
truth.
you know, like as a group, like they
My
was.
for Sean, his probably two biggest peaks were the one prior was like the Rocker, like when he
Yeah,
first
when
came in,
Marty Jannetty.
and then the Degenerate. I was actually
In
he was like the main. Him and Diesel. He had the
Yeah.
greatest match of all time. Him and Razor
The ladder-
Ramon.
the ladder-
Razor Ramon's up there too.
Man, Razor Ramon was
And rest
amazing.
in peace.
Would-
Razor Ramon was up there.
You know
too.
what about Razor Ramon? He came into the league earlier when they would hype guys before they. One of the things that WWE did when it was WWF that I thought was better than anything was building up hype. They would do these promos for weeks before the guy showed up in the ring. You'd be watching Saturday morning, and Mr. Perfect is the
was
one that
gonna say,
everybody
Mr.
knows.
Perfect, top three.
They did Mr. Perfect for 2 months before he went into the ring. I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know if he was still under contract, Kurt Hennig. I don't know what it was. I don't actually know the real details of why, but it was months that you'd watch Saturday morning, because that's when wrestling was popping in the 80s. You'd watch it in the morning, Saturday morning, when they used to have the best guys fight like no names, like Barry Horowitz and K9. They used to fight like scrubs. They didn't fight each other like it is now. They would build up guys. They hyped Mr. Perfect. By the time Mr. Perfect fought his first match, he was the second most popular wrestler in the. Vince McMahon did that brilliantly. For me, it's Macho Man Randy Savage by a country mile.
he was
Because
the
I'm
truth,
also,
too.
I'm like, this is why I was smiling when you were talking earlier. I would have loved to be a professional athlete, singularly to be on the road. I want everyone booing against me. I love it. It gives me the smirk. It gives me my energy. I love it. I love it. And when I was a kid, everybody loved Hulk Hogan. And Macho Man was a bad guy, and I was like, I'm about Macho Man. Then he became a good guy, and then he got popular and he won the title. That was my dude.
No love for Goldberg, huh?
Goldberg was a beast.
Goldberg
That
was
spear,
true. Yeah,
that
yeah.
spear was nuts.
He has a crazy win streak.
You were a little more WCW.
Well, because you said, because me and him are similar age, there was a little like
Oh,
3
when
to
it was-
6 year gap when
yeah.
WCW
Yeah.
came.
WCW.
Yeah.
Eric Bischoff,
And then
big
The
shout
Rock-
out, Eric.
And then The Rock brought WWE back.
I was about to say that because like when I was coming, it was
Stone
like
Cold. Yeah, it was WWF.
WCW. I don't even know what station it came on, but it was kind of like.
TBS.
But it was a time where WWE kind of went through something, and it did become a little bit more popular.
Yeah.
The WCW.
It was like
brand.
Monday Night
mainstream.
Nitro, they took all the guys. It was huge.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
Nitro. Eric
Nitro.
Bischoff.
It was
Yeah.
Eric-
NWO, Hogan.
Yeah, the
NWO
NWO
went
was
crazy.
it, wasn't it?
All right, what about not fake
That was
fighting?
it.
Boxing? Any of the three of you grow up loving it?
Boxing for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
What was your number one guy?
box.
I mean, well, heavyweight was probably Tyson, I guess.
How old were you when Tyson was fighting? You guys
I'm
missed.
87.
I
I just remember it, so I don't know. I was probably like 8 to 12.
I watched Mike Tyson fights like before he even was the champion of the world, like coming up on ABC and like on ESPN. It was the greatest. When Mike Tyson beat Trevor Berbick for the title when I was 11, it was like he was a superhero. It was such a big deal.
How old was Tyson at the time?
18.
Yeah, because he was doing it so
19,
young, man.
like 20 maybe
was
when he won it.
18,
He was the
19.
youngest heavyweight champion of the world. I'll never forget that fight for as long as, because Berbick also, like the way he bobbled around the ring, it was crazy. Yeah, man, Mike Tyson, 80, 85, 86, 87, 88, Mike Tyson was he was so famous and so popular, you can't even imagine. Think of like Kardashian, Drake, like it was different back then. There was no internet. He was just
He was Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson.
Yeah, and by the way, Tyson was more popular than Michael Jordan, and they weren't even in the same conversation. Michael Jackson was like the most famous. Mike Tyson
over Mike
in
Jordan?
1986 compared to, it wasn't even close. Mike Tyson was the heavyweight champion of the world. Michael Jordan was called a ball hog that would never win a title.
Oh, you're saying
You
at
guys
that
are young
time?
at that time,
I
not
got you.
overall. Overall, it's not even close the other way. But at the time, 86, 87, that was when Jordan was considered, he'll never win a title. Like, you guys are all youngsters. In junior high, there was the big debate that he'll never win a title. This seems like laughable now, but he'll never win a title because he just wants to score because he couldn't get through Detroit. Detroit was fucking, the bad boys were fucking rough.
They
All right, so
slammed me.
Tyson for you.
2. So like when I was younger, like elementary school, I'd probably say Roy Jones.
Yeah, he was unbelievable.
Roy
AJ,
Jones.
you were. I remember my whole life I wanted you to be into boxing, but I was working too much. It was hard. But remember Roy Jones when he got upset like that? Very good, bro.
I remember that.
That was the one time I thought that you would get into boxing. I'm so
I
glad.
love MMA now.
I know that, which is the best. That was been the best part of us being in MMA. That you love it now, like being up at 1 o'clock and be like, you see that's Roy Jones was the guy,
Maybe Roy Jones, and then like once
and he was swaggy as fuck.
Yeah.
now like college, and then into my first part of the league, I probably would say Deontay Wilder.
Yeah.
'Cause I feel like I saw a couple of Deontay Wilder fights here, like early Deontay Wilder.
where you were like, who's this guy's
Yeah,
crazy?
yeah. When he was first kind of coming up.
D-Bell? Anything?
Floyd. That's the only thing we really watch.
Yeah,
with
of
Floyd.
course, you're too young.
Yeah, I'm too young.
No, but it's not too young. He's one of the greatest fighters of all time.
Yeah, for sure.
I was a huge Pernell Whitaker. My answer is Tyson and Pernell Whitaker. And Pernell Whitaker was like Floyd 1.0. All defense. Crazy. He didn't have Floyd developed some power later in his career, but and is better than Pernell. But Pernell Whitaker was the guy. He was the best fighter in the Olympic '84 team.
Do you remember Sugar Ray? Was that your era at all? No.
I'm too young for that.
I'm curious how he and Floyd really kind of compare.
You know what Sugar Ray and Floyd have that Pernell I don't think had? They were considered pretty. They both pretty boy. They were considered defense, but they were nasty.
Yeah.
I remember when I started to turn on my opinion on Floyd because I love Pernell so much, so I never wanted another one. And I saw him coming up the game, and I was like, this guy's fucking good. And I knew his uncle because I remember his uncle fighting Floyd and his dad, but I remember his uncle a little more. And he got nasty in a couple fights, and I'm like, because Sugar Ray. Everyone always thinks of like, he was smart. He was a businessman. He was Coca-Cola. He was trying to make that money. And in the 70s, it's tough being a black man now. 70s, he was really cheesing it. He was smart as fuck. He got white America to fall in love with him, but he was nasty. That Tommy Hearns fight, like I'm very nerdy about boxing.
Shout out to Tommy Hearns and Tommy Hearns Jr.
Those your guys?
Man,
Yeah, I went to middle school with Tommy Hearns Jr.
bro, Tommy Hearns was one of my favorite fighters. He was so crazy good. But you see it in that first fight where Hearns had him. They were both coming up the game. The hitman had him, and Sugar Ray got like meat. Like he's nastier than people think, and I respect that's a compliment. All right, MMA. Do you get into that at all or no?
I personally do now.
Yeah,
Once
'cause
I
of
saw
all-
my first fight, the first time I saw a fight, because I don't really like fights like that. I
Yeah.
don't want to see a lot of gore,
Yeah.
but you can't help but to appreciate
Yeah,
what
it's
those
so
athletes
technical.
are doing. I mean, it's
Are you getting
Appreciate
into it
and
now?
respect a little bit. Yeah.
More
I mean,
and more,
like
right?
mainstream fight, I can't like call too many people
Yeah.
by name, but
you're
like
starting
I'll
to get a little more
definitely, yeah,
into
for
it?
sure. Like if it's like a mainstream fight, I watch the whole card.
What D-Bell, you started?
Yeah, I
getting-
watched it a little bit. I used to like Silva.
Yeah, Anderson was
So
crazy.
yeah, I used to rock with him.
You love MMA? You're hardcore?
Not hardcore,
But I saw your reaction. I always see you, Mike. You got it. The next big UFC fight at the Garden, we'll go. We'll do some VaynerSports stuff.
yeah, those guys are just different animals.
for
You gotta
I think
respect
fighting.
it.
You know, fighting is like all of it. Even wrestling. Wrestlers, WWF. I still call it that. Are all three of them boxers, MMA. Thank God for MMA because I think people are looking at it a little bit differently. And definitely WWF wrestlers. There's so much more talent and skill that goes into that than the general public. Like people, boxing's nickname is the sweet science. Like people I keep saying thank God, because I think people understand how technically incredible the MMA fighters are, and all the different martial arts and jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and it's fun to watch. I mean, I watched the first UFC like when it was wild, like crazy. If you ever watched the documentary, like we were in high school and we're like, what the fuck is this? Like a big dude, and like they were like different. They didn't even have weight classes, so you'd have like it was Street Fighter. It was like some big Samoan dude and like an 80-pound guy. You were like, it was a circus show. And we were like blown away by it. I remember thinking I remember the first one, and I was like, they'll never have a second one. This is gonna be banned, because it was like illegal, and you didn't know it was illegal forever.
Like blood sport, huh?
It was
like
now,
backyard, kinda.
What's up, my man?
Kind of like backyard.
Oh,
Because even like when you think
100%.
about it, like a lot of
Kimbo Slice.
yeah, I was about to say that.
Kimbo Slice videos.
But I think that's kind of, I don't want to say what changed MMA, but even when we look at the background of a lot of MMA fighters, that's kind of like where they kind of initially come from. It's just kind of like street fighting kind of, but like they're skilled. So then they start kind of training.
Right.
And when I say like street fight, I mean like maybe like middle school, like this dude could fight, like now he's training.
You know
what
it's
I'm
funny.
saying?
Jiu-jitsu and wrestling are so dominant core. Like you're looking at it now, like it's not Kimbo. Like you know, boxers, like big punchers, you have them, but like the talent is absurd.
Yeah.
Like when I watch it now, I loved boxing for like understanding how a jab set things up, defense. Like when I learned like they're just kind of grazing the glove. It was just I was fascinated by it. But MMA takes that to a whole nother level, because you've got so many variances of different styles and fights, and just some of the shit these guys got. Obviously, VaynerSports had a big weekend with Aljamain Sterling beating Jan, and most of the MMA world didn't see that win coming, and I felt so good for him because he really did his work. And I was watching, I love reading people's Twitter and then looking at them being a hypocrite. like I see when people cancel brands and then a year later like have the brand in their photo, and I'm always like laughing at them. That happened with the Aljamain stuff. All these people were mad that Aljamain out-wrestled him. Like boring, because they were mad because they wanted Jan to win. Meanwhile, literally 45 tweets earlier, they're like yelling at somebody about like who says it's not a good sport, and they're like, do you know how technical it is to wrestle someone to the ground? Like, it's amazing how that one of my favorite things about sports is emotion, and I think that is just at the height. There's some what I love about MMA and this whole genre of boxing, like it's the first sports. Like you go back to like there's something primal about two men squaring off. It's just it's the most human thing.
It's so mano y mano, you know.
No excuses.
And no excuses,
That's why I
no
like
nothing.
tennis, by the way.
And you can't take a break from those sports. You know what I'm saying? Like there is no
There's
break,
something
there is no
very,
playoff,
very
there is no, you know
different
what I'm saying?
One-on-one
Yeah,
sports,
you can't hide.
one-on-one
No.
sports versus team sports have fascinating dynamics.
And that's something I never did as a kid. That for me, you know, having a daughter and, you know what I'm saying, having more kids, I want all my kids to play at least one individual sport.
Interesting.
I never got a chance to play
I'm with
an
you on
individual
that. I
sport.
agree.
I play all team sports, you know, and team sports can be
You want
frustrating
to
as
get into
hell.
pickleball? Have you heard about pickleball?
I've never heard of that.
Okay,
I
so
heard about it.
pickleball is exploding. Seriously, it's a mix between tennis and ping pong is the best way I would describe it. You have to Google it. I just bought a team in Major League Pickleball because I played it 4 years ago, and I've been watching the data. Same way same way I observe TikTok or NFTs or all this stuff. Pickleball is about to pop off. You should play it.
Is it fun to play?
That's why it's popping off. It's fun to
Can
play.
you describe it a little bit?
Yeah. The paddle is like padded. The ball is like a wiffle ball type thing. So what it's doing, and the court's smaller, and it's got rules where what it's done is it's mitigated athleticism and power to a place where people can really compete each other. Like a 62-year-old woman, after you play for 6 months.
I smash her.
You'd be stunned. No, I'm serious. That probably, comma, that's what's sweeping the nation. People, the sport was designed in a way that's really, now, its popularity is getting going, and so you have better athletes, racket, hand-eye coming in, and you're starting to see a little more of the separation. But here's a fun fact. Consistently, in big pickleball tournaments, the top games, you have women beating men.
Yeah, I saw you bought the team.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to buy a bunch of teams, including an NFL one eventually.
Jets.
let's speak about that. D-Bell, I really need you to be a Jet. You know this, right? Like, this is like my greatest dream.
You got to talk to Brandon, man.
I wish Brandon, listen,
not really up to
good
you.
news. If agents had anything to do with it, it'd be a wrap. I'd take the Jets front office into hostage land to get this done. I haven't been this hot about it. This is something I'm hot on even before I knew we'd be lucky enough to represent you. AJ, I'm on the Jets D-Bell train. I know. The last time I was this crazy was Sean Green, who was a running back from Iowa, who actually then got drafted by the Jets.
I remember Sean.
I remember Sean too. Yeah.
So I'm praying. I'm really hopeful. Brandon?
I
I was just about to say that.
I know.
I don't
Good-
know.
good
Nothing to
answer.
say
Come up
either.
and want to take him, great. That'd be great. I know he's gonna ball wherever he goes. So
All right,
Yeah, we don't
parting
wanna-
thoughts. Brandon, what did we not? We didn't get too deep in NFT land.
no, we didn't. Parting thoughts about what, G?
Anything, brother, just to wrap up the podcast. Anything we didn't touch on? Anything you're excited about? Any theme that you took away? Maybe something like, oh, gee, I really like that you bring up that roses thing. I'm going to start doing more of that. in
I
real
did.
life.
I really do like that.
Isn't it
though.
cool?
Yeah, and
I
it's
thought you'd like it.
Well, just because I hate cancel culture and I hate like the whole idea of judging people off like one
Yeah, it's-
event or something like
100%.
that. So I do like that. Maybe that you need to start a movement for real.
I
on
really
that.
want to. I've been really hot on it. That's why I unveiled it a little bit here. I'm like, we just need to start bringing energy. Literally, like, do you know how nice it's gonna feel for some of the I mean, for that coach, this show
Yeah,
gets listened
yeah,
to a lot of
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Somebody's gonna know that you're coach and is gonna send them this clip. You know how
that's
nice that's
real.
gonna feel?
Yeah.
You know, some of the players that like D-Rob just gave, it feels
Yeah.
nice. You know, a Brown sending this clip of Miles Garrett, like it just feels nice. Humans are humans. Getting complimented, getting roses feels nice. No matter how many fucking roses you have, it's still nice.
It really does.
It's really just nice.
Yeah.
Fuck.
My little brother got married this past weekend.
Congrats.
So I saw a lot of people from back home,
Mm.
and I had like multiple people kind of come up and give me some roses, and it really did feel good. You know?
nice.
And it wasn't the fact of like you want the clout or I want to put it on Instagram.
Just
It was
feels
just
nice.
like, man, I
Especially with
appreciate
somebody
that.
you know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or like in Brandon's analogy or D-Bell's like when two people live it, like Coach lived it with him. Coach probably remembers noticing 6-year-old D-Bell taking note of him doing something fatherly and probably thought a little something. Like, Revis might hear this clip and be like, I remember talking. Like, I'm very passionate about when the two humans are the only two people that know the situation. There's something special. And that's what happened to you.
Yeah.
The people from back home, like you guys both know.
Yeah.
It's not about the press. It's not writing a mock draft or an article or sending a nice tweet. Like, you two actually know.
Yep.
And that's the thing too, in the nature of the world now, for anybody who's kind of higher profile to any kind of degree or significance, it's always the opposite. You know what I'm saying? There's always so much heavy scrutiny, you know? So for a lot of guys, being able to give people their flowers, when you can, to any degree, I definitely think it's worth it for sure.
Do you do that? After games, actually, this is a great way to end with a little story time. After a game, whether you win, lose, you're pumped or very disappointed, are you one to just go back to the locker room and, get showered up and think? Or do you kind of go chop up with somebody that you came up at camps with or, used to play with because once you're in the league, things of that nature? How do you guys both play it? Consistently same way, different every game depending? How do you play it, D-Bell? Like after your games in college?
Mine was pretty much consistently, no matter like win or loss, I'll stay after, sign autographs, and then shoot back with my family. My family waiting in my apartment for me, and we'll chop it up about what happened with the win or what happened with the loss.
What about opposing players is what I'm more interested in.
Oh,
actually.
opposing players?
Yeah.
As far as what
Would you
mean?
talk to them after a game, exchange jerseys, talk to the guy that lined up against you,
Yeah,
went to high school
yeah.
with some kid, like you knew you went to high school with dude and he's on the other side, go seek him out and say what's up after game?
Yeah, win or loss,
Yeah.
I'll definitely stay out there and, give them their respect, say good
'Cause I'm
game.
salty.
So, yeah.
Parker.
I ain't gonna.
About what?
Yeah, I'm the same.
Like
You know?
if I was upset that I don't see us, I don't think we would have been great at that. I feel like if a loss mattered to me and I was upset,
Depends on the game.
that's what I think. I would, if
Playoff game?
I'm not losing a playoff game. I'm
Yeah,
not
I'm-
even talking to another human being, let alone an opposing player.
I had a couple of close friends do that before, and like I never forget it. So I would never be that way. Like
That's
after
how-
a game,
that's how
where
I
I had
feel.
a homie that didn't even shake my hand after a game one
Well,
time. It's one of my
nah,
closest
fact.
friends.
Yeah, I like that.
No,
guy. What's his
no.
name?
Man,
Who's
that's
that?
corny.
Give him
I
the
can't even
roses.
put him
That's
out
real
there like
roses, though. That's not bad. That's roses in my
And
world.
this is still my guy.
Go
This
ahead.
is my guy, Monty Simmons.
Okay, Monty
He's out in
Simmons,
LA.
if you're listening, email me. You're my friend now. We're family, Monty.
that's my
We're
fam.
family now. I fuck with that. Fuck you, Brandon. We lost. I'm out. I'll talk to you in a week and we can chop it up and be best friends. But this exact second, after I lost this fucking important game, fuck you, your family, your future family, everything. Fuck everybody.
I hear you. Hey, Mon, you hear what he said?
Alan, you could get like that a little bit once in a
Yeah,
while.
yeah. It depends on the game. Yeah, for sure. Like for me,
What was the game that you were most heated about in your professional career, Jacksonville, Chicago? Most heated, leaving like actually, do you have one?
yeah. It's,
Good, I want it because it's fun for Jags and
My
Bears.
first
fans.
one that come to mind is week 1, 2016. We lost to Green Bay in Jacksonville.
I remember
When I played, I
the
was playing for
PIs?
Jacksonville.
I remember that.
Yes.
I was there at that game. Yeah.
That one.
What happened?
was
They kept their
terrible.
own pass interference against Jacksonville.
No, he was getting held and PI'd the whole game that he couldn't get a flag for nothing.
I think I ended up getting maybe 1, but we
was
lost.
bad.
We lost by maybe like 4, but it came down to the wire, like the last final
And
position.
you wanted it.
Yeah, we lost. And then
See, I respect that.
Trying to think
Week
about
1 loss,
Chicago.
super salt. This is why I fuck with Alan. Week 1 loss.
yeah,
That's the way it should be.
Chicago, probably Saints 2020.
Saints
Playoffs.
2020 play. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I feel like I should have got the rock a little more. So
boys. Thanks for being on.
appreciate
Appreciate
it,
you,
G.
man.
Appreciate it.